We are live. Welcome to today's live commentary coverage of practice and qualifying, which is taking place at the Martinsville Speedway here this weekend for tomorrow's running of the Cookout 400. We've seen Cookout sponsor quite a few races in recent years, but Martinsville has been the stop for the full race the last couple times this year. The spring race, 400 laps around this half-mile short track for tomorrow afternoon as teams are getting their cars set up and equipped for this 25-minute practice session for both Group A and Group B. Split practice, obviously, that we've seen on the oval so far this season, will continue to have throughout the course of the year before going into single car qualifying immediately after. Just one round, up to 2 laps, with it being a half-mile short track. Our first traditional short track race of the season outside of the Busch Clash, which was at the LA Coliseum in a non-points race where we only had half the field in the main event. As practice is beginning off here, you see Christopher Bell at the top of the speed charts just about 4 to 5 laps into the practice session already as we start things off here at the top of the hour. All drivers listed in this group would include Christopher Bell, Carson Hocevar, Cole Custer, Shane Van Gisbergen, Ty Gibbs, Kyle Busch. Then you got Cody Ware, Ty Dillon, Todd Gilliland, Brad Keselowski, John Hunter Nemechek, Ryan Blaney, Ross Chastain, Riley Herbst, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and Casey Mears are the 19 drivers in this group. Alex Bowman, Noah Gragson also in this group but have not made a lap yet. And still waiting on them to hit the racetrack, so an interesting strategy that they are not out there quite yet. 38 cars on the entry list for this weekend. Our usual 36 suspects in the chartered entries. 2 non-chartered entries this weekend, which would include the 66 of Casey Mears returning to the NASCAR Cup Series. First time he has started a race at Martinsville since 2016. And that was back with Germain Racing in the 13 car in the Gen 6 era, middle of that, or beginning of that, really, in the first few years of the Gen 6. So it's been a long time. A 9-year hiatus at this racetrack for Casey Mears. But nonetheless, that is for MBM. And then Burt Myers going to be running the 50 car this weekend for the Money Team. He also ran the Clash earlier this year. He failed to qualify for the main event, but he has next-gen experience on a short track. So that is why he is here this weekend. He'll be making his Cup Series points debut. We'll be seeing him in Group B for practice a little later on. So Christopher Bell still the quickest now, 10 laps complete as laps winding by quickly here at Martinsville. Best time for Bell, 20.172. Average speed on that lap of 93.872 miles per hour. For anybody that wants to help walk me along, because I did want to make sure I got the stream started on time. We had some technical difficulties. I should say specifically, with my Amazon Prime account. And I need help to try to get that navigated for you guys. Install it and see if that works, because that's the only thing I haven't done yet as far as trying to see what would work. But I cannot even find the account page for the subscription. Every time I click on it, it just says that something went wrong. And if it redirects me to Amazon.com, it says something went wrong. I did email them that there was a problem even viewing my account. And it was just out of pure randomness, because obviously it worked the first few weeks. And it's strange that I can't even get into I can get into the app, but I can't click on watching anything live. Because for some reason it's not reading that I have a subscription. Like on one web page it said I didn't have one, and I'm like, well, that's weird. I should have one. And then when I signed into just Amazon, and I would click on manage subscriptions, and it said that I had the subscription, and then I would click on it and it would redirect me to Google Pay, which is what's going through. And then there was nothing on Google Pay at all. Like there wasn't even an Amazon Prime or Amazon option on there. So it's I can't get into that part of it. If anybody's got any ideas, let me know. Last week we just missed practice, went into the qualifying stream, and obviously we have the live times that show up lap by lap, and I was giving my commentary on that as usual. And it looks like we're going to have to do that, unfortunately, again here this weekend. I had to work an OT shift through the morning, so I actually just got back a little over an hour ago. Got all the notes ready to go just in time, and over the last 20 to 25 minutes, I've been just trying to get that working, and I have had troubles yet again trying to get that up and running, but do the best we can to try to highlight what's going on here as it's going on the practice session side of things. Noah Gragson has finally hit the racetrack. Daniel Suarez also a little late into the practice session, turning laps. Burt Myers actually is in this group of cars, so they have both of the open entries in Group A. Usually in years past, with the way the groups have been labeled for practice and qualifying since COVID, they have had a split number of the open entries, half in one group, half in another, but it looks like both of them will be in this 19-car group. Alex Bowman would end up being in Group B, so for some reason he showed up on our list as Group A, but he is not. He is in Group B. So again, Daniel Suarez, after he just hit the racetrack a little later, would be 14th quickest overall. And then Noah Gragson, who waited to hit the track for about 15 to 20 or so laps, was ran by almost everybody else before he went out there. He has now clicked away 10 laps, and he is 7th quickest on the board. Our full 19 in order right now. You would have Bergen 4th, and Ty Gibbs rounds out our top 5. 6th place for Kyle Busch, Noah Gragson 7th, Cody Ware 8th, Brad Keselowski 9th, Ty Dillon 10th, Todd Gilliland 11th, John Hunter Nemechek in 12th, Daniel Suarez 13th, Ryan Blaney 14th, Ross Chastain 15th, then Riley Herbst 16th, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. 17th, Burt Myers 18th, and Casey Mears 19th. We'll see the other 19 cars hit up the racetrack as soon as Group A practice is done. Again, 25 minutes for each group on all of the ovals this season. Outside of the few tracks, we will have full practice sessions, which we've seen a couple times already this year, like groups again, but they gave them 2 sessions due to the new track layout. In the early going for Group A, aka Group 1, Shane Van Gisbergen actually has the fastest 5-lap average, Ty Gibbs with the fastest 10-lap average, as well as in the 15 and 20-lap categories for those who have clicked away 15 to 20 laps, which so far we've only seen about half the field click away 15 to 20 laps in a run. Some have already pulled off to make some early adjustments. Maybe not as much of a surprise to see Shane Van Gisbergen running this well. Road course racers in years past have had a pretty good quick acclimation to this oval compared to most others. SVG actually finished 12th in his only Cup start here late last season in November. So having a returning racetrack that he's raced at before, and the fact that he is a good road course racer with this next-gen car, I think he could have an outside chance of having at least a pretty decent performance, and he definitely has the quick speed in practice to show for it. Obviously, Christopher Bell, a former winner here, so him being fastest overall probably doesn't surprise, as he won the 2022 fall race, which obviously would have landed under the next-gen era as well. Samuel Sander, by the way, thanks for tuning in the chat. I haven't shouted you out yet. 15 likes on the streamer. Goals to get to 50 during the course of the live practice and qualifying that we have going on as of right now. Nine minutes, 15 seconds and counting into the first 25-minute block. And there's definitely going to be quite a few laps ticked away by some of these drivers. These short tracks, even in the 20 minutes that we had in previous years with the group practice, you'd see drivers tune in about 60 to 80 laps. Might even see more than that, considering they have an extra 5 minutes to work with from the start of this season for our group practice sessions. You're probably not going to see hardly any change on our leaderboard as well, since everybody has hit the racetrack. Only get 1 set of tires per practice session. Obviously, they can pit and make adjustments whenever they want during the 25-minute block. And no cautions to record in the early going so far, which we haven't seen a lot of incidences take place. I think actually the only caution we've seen in practice so far was a rain issue in the second practice session of the Daytona 500, and then Ryan Blaney having that flat right rear at Vegas a couple weeks ago, causing an accident. That was the only accident we've seen in a Cup Series practice session all season. Spin, anything of that nature. Seen a couple spins at Coda, but nothing to warrant a caution as they were well off the course and out of the racing line, which that would be normal. Refresh the page, see where we're at. We're like 12 and a half minutes into practice. It's already halfway through Group 1. Already 30-plus laps for a couple drivers. Brad Keselowski, Carson Hocevar, Cody Ware, Kyle Busch, Ty Gibbs, Cole Custer, Ryan Blaney, Ross Chastain already ran more than 30 laps, so definitely pacing to get over that 60-lap bencher like we've seen in years past for group practice. And considering that these teams could go well over 100 laps on a full fuel run, this will be nothing compared to what we could see in the final stage if we get a long green flag run at Martinsville, which we tend to see, and we've had a lot of in the next-gen era. This spring race has not warranted many cautions in the last few years since the next-gen had debuted, and since the race has been shortened as well from 500 laps to 400 for the spring date. On our leaderboard, you will see the Group 2 times mix in with the Group 1 times. And the red bench marker on the left side, I think it's red. It might be green. I think it's green, actually. I'm colorblind for those of you that don't know. It looked red at first for me. It's probably green. That would make more sense. Green means go, especially in this sport. But needless to say, that means that they are currently on track. If they're off track, there would be nothing next to it, which makes for a pretty good indication of when Group 2 hits the racetrack compared to Group 1, especially early on. You see everybody on the track at once as to who would be in which group. So our first qualifying session after practice, where we will see more than one lap be had. Don't have to take 2 laps, but considering it's only one round, I would imagine almost everybody will take 2 laps. And with not a lot of tire fall off at Martinsville with the next-gen car, although they've been trying to bring softer tires here over the last couple seasons, there might be a pretty good opportunity to actually run a quicker lap on lap 2 versus a Bristol or a Richmond. This will be the only one of our traditional short tracks that we go to where 2 laps will pretty much be ran by every driver. More often than not, that would be the case anyway, considering it's just one round, but this is the one track you might actually see a difference in lap time. We'll look back at the lap averages. While we've seen a few drivers run 30-plus laps, so I mentioned that in the 5-lap category for average speed, Shane Van Gisbergen was the quickest, and then you had Ty Gibbs as the quickest in the 10, 15, and 20-lap categories. Gibbs is also quickest in 25, and no surprise to see Ryan Blaney towards the top of the speed charts on the long run. That is what's helped him win the last 2 fall races at Martinsville. We saw him already be great on the long run in the last 2 races we've seen on ovals at Vegas and Homestead. He had the quickest long run car in both of those races. There was a bit of tire strategy that went on during stage 2 of the Homestead race, but I'd still like to think that he had the quickest car overall, short run and long run last week. Vegas, it was more on the long run. And he hasn't had the short run speed this weekend, it looks like, in the 5, 10, 15 lap category that we saw in the intermediate tracks. But the long run speed is definitely there. Second fastest 25 lap average, fastest 30 lap average of those that have made a run that far. And again, we still have half the field that is yet to hit the racetrack, so we'll see how that maybe mixes in. I took Kyle Larson to win the race last week at Homestead because he was the quickest in the short and long run through practice, even quicker than Blaney. Once we got into the race, we saw that Blaney drivers in that end as well. He's had a lot of great finishes at Martinsville with this next-gen car. He actually comes into this race here this weekend leading the third most laps, of any driver in the next-gen era at Martinsville Speedway. So while we wait for Group A practice to finish up, we'll take a look at the point standings, which I would have had scrolling at the top of the screen, but I didn't give myself enough time for when I left work. I got all the notes ready for when qualifying begins, and I'll read that off like I usually do every weekend. But as far as practice goes, we'll just take a look at it in depth while it's not scrolling at the top of the screen. 36-point lead through the first 6 points paying races for William Byron, plus obviously the top 10 getting points in the dual races at Daytona could factor into some of the regular season standings as well. 111 laps led, 4 top 10s and 3 top 5s through those first 6 races for Byron. His only win in the Daytona 500. Only 1 stage win so far this year. Obviously, a strong start by way of consistent finishes. He's been scoring a lot of stage points. He's just running up at the front from start to finish of the race, and that is why he is our current points leader by over a half race worth of points ahead of Larson, who jumps up 4 positions following his win last weekend at Homestead, his best race of the season by far. Scored the most stage points of any other race he's had so far this season on top of getting his first win. He's led 92 laps, just shy of his teammate, and he did win 2 stages so far this season, one more than his teammate Byron that leads him in points. Also has 3 top 5s and 4 top 10s with no DNFs. The difference is William Byron has had better finishes and more stage points than Larson, despite having similar statistics. So more stage points for William Byron is a big key there, and then finishes outside the top 10 have been a little bit better for that 24 car than the 5. Alex Bowman, third in the point standings. 1, 2, 3 for Hendrick Motorsports this season. Bowman's 39 points out. He does have the most top 10s of any driver. He's the only one with 5+. Sitting at 5, but just the 1 top 5 would be the difference there. He's scoring a lot of stage points, very similar to Byron. He scored quite a few last weekend at Homestead. He ran top 5 most of the race, second place stage points in stage 1, but that was his only top 5 finish of the year, finishing in second in that event. That was the first time we'd really seen him lead laps all season. Clicked away quite a few laps led. He's up to 62 now on his total this year, which is already more laps led than he had last season. So Alex Bowman definitely strong out of the gate here in 2025. Tyler Reddick is the highest in the point standings of the Toyota group. Of course, he was a regular season champ last year. He's 55 points back. Still looking for his first win as well as Bowman. It does have 1 more top 5, but 2 less top 10s. No DNFs on the year, 43 laps led. Christopher Bell rounds out the top 5 in points. Obviously, his 3 wins consecutively. Surprisingly enough, though, those are his only 3 top 10s. So he's either winning a race or he's not finishing in the top 10 through the first 6 events. 114 laps led, most of which coming in those races that he was able to win. 1 DNF on the year, 1 stage win. And forgot to mention as well for Reddick and Bowman, no stage wins on the season for them. So the top 5 in points are the only ones within a race worth of each other from first that can mathematically take the points lead this weekend. Chase Elliott comes into this weekend 6th in the point standings. Bubba Wallace up 4 spots to 7th after a top 3 run at Homestead a week ago. Denny Hamlin, who had a strong day winning a stage and also finishing up in the top 5, is now 8th in points, also up 4 spots. Highest positioning Ford in points is Chris Buescher back in 9th. Ryan Blaney moves back 3 positions after his second DNF. Third straight, I should say, DNF, his second engine failure in a row. And unlike the race at Phoenix with the engine failure coming in the middle going in the race, in Las Vegas, qualifying at the back, falling behind early off the lead lap on pit strategy, he wasn't able to get good finishes or stage points. At least he had stage points to fall back on. Last week, he did get his second stage win of the year, but 10th in points for Ryan Blaney. Has had good speed all season, just hasn't been able to click away good finishes. And although that might not seem like a big deal, he gets a win, he's in the playoffs anyway. Remember, playoff points are awarded to the top 10 in the regular season standings. Had he not have those 3 DNFs, he could be up there with the likes of Byron, Larson, and Bowman. And that could be a costly 7-8 playoff points the closer we get to the end of the regular season if he isn't able to get out of the hole back in 10th place that he is in right now. You can only have so much speed for so long before it starts to taper off and the rest of the field catches up, especially early in the year. We've seen that in years past. Look at last season, Denny Hamlin, William Byron, each winning 3 races apiece in the first 9 races of last year. It looked like those two were going to go toe-to-toe all season. Neither one of them won another race the rest of the year. Needless to say, that speed throughout the season definitely would have scored more playoff points along the regular season. So Ryan Blaney not able to get the wins like the 11 and 24 did with their early season speed last year, could maybe even be at more of a detriment than what they had a season ago. Joey Logano still without a top 10 points paying finish this season. 0 for 6 to start the year. He hasn't had great finishes, but he's been up at the front because of qualifying well, and he's led a lot of laps, which has led us to believe that he's scoring a lot of stage points. He's got 1 stage win, but he's up in the top 5, top 10 for a lot of the first 2 stages, which is why he's actually 11th in points, despite the fact that he hasn't scored a top 10 finish. Only 1 DNF. They just have caution at the wrong place, wrong time. don't have the speed in some weeks compared to others. There's been races where he's qualified well, but on the long run, he can't keep that car in the top 10 by the end of the race, especially with the final stage being longer in length than the first two stages. I think that's really bit that 22 team quite a bit so far this season. So definitely struggling, but we did see this out of Logano for most of last season as well, although he had gotten top 10s along the way because of strategy. Unfortunately for Logano, strategy has not been there to save him so far this season. Josh Berry locked into the playoffs with a win early in the year, is 12th in the point standings. 76 laps led, most of which coming at Super Speedway at Atlanta earlier in the season. That's where he got his only stage win of the year. He's only had 2 top 10 finishes, believe it or not. Those races coming at Phoenix and Vegas. But again, a lot of stage points. He's been qualifying well, just like Logano, but unfortunately, Logano's way at Vegas, but then they had a bad pit stop and just shot themselves in the foot. But as far as Josh Berry, he had the quick pit stop that day, was able to compete for the win, got it ultimately. Great season, obviously off to a start for the Wood brothers. I mean, they were outside the top 30 in points most of last year, so to be 12th in points overall, even if we forget about the playoff side of things with the win he already has, he's in a pretty good spot. Chase Briscoe up 7 positions in points, biggest gainer from one week to the next. Last week to this week, he's up to 13th right now. Just goes to show how tight it is from about 13th through 20th in points. But Chase Briscoe, 2 top 10s, 2 top 5s, has shown a lot more speed in the last couple of weeks on the intermediate tracks at Vegas and at Homestead. We'll see what he has on a short track, which has been good to him here at Martinsville Speedway with SHR. We'll see if he can turn that speed over with Joe Gibbs Racing for this week. 3 top 10s for Ross Chastain in his last 6 races at Martinsville. Looking for his 3rd top 10 this weekend. His 14th, 15th, and 16th, rounding out our top 16 in points for the cutoff line on the playoff side of things, are Michael McDowell and Ryan Preece. A tie between Preece and Kyle Busch for that last spot. John Hunter Nemechek also in there with a tie. Still fading in the point standings based off of the top 10s in the first 2 races of the year, but hasn't faded completely out of the picture yet. And definitely going to have better finishes on non-super speedways if he can't get an upset win. So that is the point season, point standing so far in the early going, at least for the top front runners. We'll highlight some of the drivers who are on the lower end of things that are very much struggling early in the season. Brad Keselowski, much like Logano, has not had a top 10 finish so far this year. The difference is Keselowski's not qualifying well at all. He's starting at the back. He's staying there. At least Logano's able to get stage points, lead a bunch of laps, and that's bailing him out. No laps led for Brad Keselowski. Only 2 DNFs despite the fact that he hasn't finished in the top 10. That team's just been off on speed all season. Had a new crew chief change for that 6th ride, but definitely well behind Buescher and Preece, who are both in the top 16 in points as of right now. Keselowski more than double that behind. He is currently within striking distance for points because we are still early in the season behind the cut line. He's not more than a race back, but still lacking on the speed side of things. We'll see if he can pick up where he left off from last year, which he had pretty good speed for most of the season. Fell off a bit late in the year once the playoffs began, but even still had a pretty solid run. He was the only one of the 2 RFK Fords that made the postseason, and definitely a down year for a former NASCAR Cup Series champion. Riley Herbst is outside the top 30 in points, of course, in his rookie season. Same for Shane Van Gisbergen, looking for his first. Noah Gragson, 1 top 10 finish on the year. Surprised he's not further ahead in points than what you would think. Being back at 32nd, he's had strong runs, but quite a few DNFs. If not DNFs, with only the 2 DNFs, I should say. He has had incidences which have resulted in him having bad runs. He did finish the race at Vegas, but he cut a tire down with that incident that he ended up having and damage from it while he was running top 10 for most of the day before that. Took him out of a good run, and he only has that top 10 at COTA earlier this season. And that was a race that he didn't score a lot of stage points in, but had a good finish. He's been qualifying well. He's had good speed. Waiting for that to start to transition into more consistent finishes. I'd say even though the points don't indicate it, he's been the best car at FRM so far this season. Ty Gibbs, 34th in the point standings. Only 2 DNFs. Again, not crashing out a lot, but just like Keselowski, just no speed. Not qualifying well. Not doing well when they unload with speed. This weekend might look a little bit different because he is top 5 in practice in the early going. But as far as Ty Gibbs goes, as far as qualifying at the back, starting there, running there most of the race. I mean, it's been abysmal for Gibbs. He's been outside the top 20 pretty much every race this season on speed, and if not worse than that. I mean, Vegas, he qualified outside the top 30 and was running there by any means, and 176 points back. He's over a full race worth of points out of 16th, and obviously a lot of drivers to jump to get up there. Might be putting himself in a must-win situation, which could be tough for a driver who has never broken into victory lane in the NASCAR Cup Series in his Cup career. So that's a highlight on what has happened so far through the first 6 races of the 2025 NASCAR season. Refresh our page here and take a look at our practice times once again as that is clicked on by. We have already seen a finish to Group 1/Group A practice. And again, Christopher Bell was the fastest overall with a lap time of a 20.172. Average speed on the lap of 93.872 miles per hour. 51 laps ran for Bell in his practice session, 0.02 of a second quicker than Carson Hocevar, who was second quickest. Some of the most laps tuned in for most of these drivers, a few of them running 60-plus laps. Those drivers would include Ross Chastain, Ryan Blaney, Ty Gibbs, Cole Custer, and Carson Hocevar. 5 drivers of the 19 in Group 1 had ran 60-plus laps. Most laps ran, it looks like Carson Hocevar was 68. And then Ryan Blaney was 67. Van Gisbergen, despite being 4th overall, not many laps for him. 32 for Todd Gillen at Front Row Motorsports. 37 for Riley Herbst. And the 2 open entries just over 30. Burt Myers with 31. 33 for Casey Mears. Waiting for our Group 2 drivers to show up on our list for practice, because they are on the track right now. They just haven't intertwined on our lap sheet for some reason. There was a problem with that last week on NASCAR.com with their raw feed as well. I'm going to try logging out of NASCAR.com real quick and go back into it and see if that helps. Sometimes that works. No, that's NASCARshop.com. That's not the same. All right, haven't seen them on the list yet. Alex Bowman, AJ Allmendinger, Austin Cindric are on our list, but it's not showing any lap times. Well, when the leaderboard does update, you're going to see them intertwined with the Group 1 lap times on our lap sheet. Hopeful Frank Powers, welcome to the stream as well. Hopeful in the Key West this weekend. Oh, yeah, you said you live down there, don't you? I think I remember you stating that in recent weeks. First of 2 live commentary streams on the day. Our next one will be the NASCAR Xfinity Series race at 5 p.m. Eastern. And then obviously our Cup Series race coverage will begin tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. Eastern with our pre-race show. Pre-race predictions, highlight the Fantasy League, and then we will also get on into the Sporkle NASCAR trivia game, which has been one of the highlights on the pre-race show. And new things added for our 2025 NASCAR Cup Series coverage. Sunday coverage, at least. Or Saturday night when we do get to the Saturday night races later in the season. We'll take a quick ad break while we're waiting for our leaderboard to update a little bit more here. I might have to log out of NASCAR.com yet again. 20 likes on the stream. Greatly appreciate that as well. Again, on our goal to 50, just past halfway through practice for the Cookout 400 at Martinsville. It's weird too because it's showing caution the entire time on our leaderboard, which might be why it's not registering for some reason on the lap sheet. Well, when it gets to 50 minutes, time will be up because, again, there are 25 minutes for each Group 1 and Group 2. Again, to highlight from Group 1 in case you missed it, Shane Van Gisbergen with the fastest 5-lap average. Ty Gibbs with the fastest 10 through 25 lap average, which is great to see for Ty Gibbs that he's got good unload speed this weekend for the first time this year. And Ryan Blaney up there in the long run as well. Second fastest 25 lap average and the fastest overall 30 lap average. That's all we can look at on the lap average side of things on NASCAR.com. It does not go beyond 30 laps, even though we saw some drivers run 60 plus. Quite a few drivers obviously taking the advantage. Everybody ran 30 plus as well. Just did not get to see all of them consecutively, which would have equated into our lap average. Really upset it's not showing the stated leaderboard. No matter how many times I refresh it, just does not pop up. Might have to improvise here. Tried refreshing it like 4 different times. It's showing them on the racetrack. But it's not showing the lap times, which is so weird. I wonder if the order that we see on the screen is the order that they are in for Group B specifically by way of lap times, and we just can't see the lap times. I don't want to read through it just in case, because it also looks like it's pretty well organized too. See, oh, okay, now we're starting to see lap times. All right, that is good. Lap times are now getting intertwined with Group B. All 4 Hendrick Motorsport cars in the same group for the second consecutive week. Quite a few strong Toyotas as well. Hamlin, Briscoe, Reddick, Wallace, all in this group. Had a lot more of the Fords in Group 1, but Group 2, mostly Toyotas and Chevys. Ryan Preece will be the first to jump up into the top 10 for Group 2 on his 3rd lap of practice. Eighth overall for Ryan Preece. Denny Hamlin jumps up to 2nd quickest, just behind his teammate Christopher Bell, fastest in Group 2. William Byron cracks the top 5 overall. Bubba Wallace, fastest time yet, 20.166. Wallace has had great short run speed the last couple weeks. He was actually fastest overall in practice on the 1.5 miles at Las Vegas and Homestead. And here we go to a short track, and he runs the fastest lap in practice yet again. Doesn't matter whether he's been in Group A or Group B. He's been in both. 94.138 mile per hour average. 6 laps in for Wallace so far through his practice session. Again, 20.115. Almost 600ths of a second better than Bell's lap. And Denny Hamlin, 1-2-3 Toyota at the top of the leaderboard, is the second in Group 2. Kyle Larson up in the top 10. Same for Chase Elliott. So 3 Hendrick Chevys are up there as well. Only Ford in the top 10 overall would be Custer from Group 1, who is 5th, and then Ryan Preece in Group 2, who is 8th. And the only driver not to click any laps yet in practice is A.J. Allmendinger of the 38. Still waiting on A.J. to hit the racetrack. 2 runner-ups for Allmendinger in his Cup career, coming well before the next-gen era at Martinsville. And his 4 starts in the next-gen car, he has failed to finish in the top 20. See if he can turn that around. His teammate SVG had a 12th place finish here last year. He was quick in practice, so maybe he can... Well, I guess they're not teammates. Never mind. SVG was at Colleague last season in the 16 car. That was throwing me off when he ran this race, obviously with Trackhouse now. Much faster, though, than Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez in practice. Suarez was 24th, Chastain 27th, but SVG top 10 and 9th. And he ran way less laps than both of those drivers. Chastain ran 63, only 33 for Van Gisbergen. Short run lap averages, we'll see where some of the Group 2 drivers are. Maybe no surprise that Wallace has the best 5 lap average, considering his fastest lap was around lap 6. And Wallace now is the fastest 10 lap average as well. And that's overall. That's Group 1 and Group 2. Hamlin's got the fastest 5 lap average in Group 2. But then if you go to the 10 lap average, he falls to 6th. William Byron is 3rd on the 10 lap average sheet and 3rd in the 5 lap average. We'll highlight that again when we get into the further portion of this practice session. But that's where it stands for right now. So we had a 15-minute break, it looks like, in between Group 1 and Group 2's practice. NASCAR cleaning the track off, I'm sure, in between both of these practice runs. So I believe when our timer gets to 1 hour is when we're going to see that change. I should say 10 minutes of downtime, not 15. I was doing my math wrong. About 10 minutes of a pause in between. I haven't had the chat up on my phone almost the entire time. I apologize if I've not shouted anybody out yet. I haven't seen anybody new up to this point. Light goal again is at 50. And we are currently at 21. I didn't put the poll up in the chat yet for race win picks for tomorrow. Let me do that. Who is most likely to win at... Oh. So I'm just going to put who is most likely to win tomorrow. At Martinsville. Between the 4 drivers of Kyle Larson, William Byron, Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin. Based off of the little bit we've seen from Group 2 practice, all of Group 1, and what I was looking at on the stat sheet in my notes leading up to this weekend's on-track activity, those would be my early favorites. Those 4. Chase Elliott I would have thrown in there as well if I had a fit slot. Those are my top 5 coming into the weekend. I don't have a particular order for them yet, but those are the 5 I'm eyeing for the win this weekend. Larson, Byron, Elliott, then Blaney and Hamlin. I'd probably say Hamlin is the least likely of those. He's been good at Martinsville in the next-gen car, but he hasn't had race-winning speed like he has at some of the other short tracks of Richmond and Bristol. Spring race. Byron's won 2 of the last 3 spring races here since the shortened distance of 400 laps. Kyle Larson's had some great finishes and leads a ton of laps at Martinsville. Chase Elliott, although Elliott hasn't won in the next-gen car like Larson and Byron have. But he did win here back in 2020, and he still had really good finishes to go along with it. Ryan Blaney, although he's been better in the fall race with winning the last 2 there, last 3 times here. Once we get 30-plus laps in, then we'll see what the long-run pacing's looking like. And A.J. Allmendinger has hit the racetrack a little later. He's got 10 laps in. 33rd for him. So our full practice leaderboard, as of right now, we got Bubba Wallace leading the way with a lap time of a 20.38 miles per hour. He's currently ran 27 laps and is on track. Christopher Bell, who was fastest from Group 1, is 2nd overall. Denny Hamlin 3rd. Then Carson Hocevar 4th. Cole Custer 5th. Kyle Larson 6th. William Byron 7th. Ryan Preece 8th. Shane Van Gisbergen 9th. And Chase Elliott 10th. And again, that's overall lap time. Fastest lap from this session. Ty Gibbs 11th, Kyle Busch 12th, Noah Gragson 13th, Cody Ware 14th, Brad Keselowski 15th, Eric Jones 16th, 19th, and Joey Logano 20th. 21st for John Hunter Nemechek, Alex Bowman 22nd, Tyler Reddick 23rd, Daniel Suarez 24th, Ryan Blaney 25th, Austin Dillon 26th, Ross Chastain 27th, Chris Buescher 28th, Michael McDowell 29th, Riley Herbst 30th, Josh Berry 31st, Zane Smith 32nd, A.J. Allmendinger 33rd, Justin Haley 34th, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. 35th, Austin Cindric 36th, Burt Myers 37th, and Casey Mears 38th. Those last 2, of course, the only 2 non-chartered entries for this weekend. Still can't get over how tight the fastest lap times are with this next-gen car. Granted, we're on the shortest racetrack on the circuit, but less than 0.2 of a second separates 1st from 25th. There's not a lot of difference there. And it just goes to show when you fall back in traffic with these cars and at this racetrack, and the combination of the 2, why it's so hard to navigate back through the front of the field. Because even if you have the fastest car, it's not going to be by much over the 25th place car. And it's also why when you get into lap traffic, when we do have these long green flag runs, it's very difficult to get by lap cars, and that really bunches the front portion of the field up a lot more to add to it. All right, now we'll look at the lap averages. So 5-10 lap average, again, Bubba Wallace fastest. Ty Gibbs still has the fastest 15 lap average. Bubba Wallace fastest from this group. Kyle Busch up there as well, 3rd quickest, 15 lap average. Wallace fastest 20 lap average in this group, but again, Ty Gibbs overall. 25 lap average, Wallace still the quickest, but drops to 3rd, as both the 25 lap averages of Gibbs and Blaney were quickest. And then Ryan Blaney still the fastest 30 lap average. So it looks like Blaney's going to be really quick on the long run again. This is going to be the 3rd consecutive week we're going to see that. Can he capitalize and actually get a win this time, though? That's the next question. Because that is yet to be determined. Hendrick cars fire off really good on the short run. William Byron, top 3 in the 5 and 10 lap category, drops to 4th on the 15 lap average run, and he drops even further back. And that is kind of what's been the Achilles heel in the fall race the last 3 years for Hendrick Motorsports, and why they've been winning the spring race. And I think, honestly, that shorter distance really helps them, because that makes the final stage a lot shorter than the final stage in the fall race compared to the spring event. And really, you get 1 to 2 cautions in there. Tough to get by them. Stages 1 and 2 are way shorter than stages 1 and 2 in the fall race. And that they win a lot of stages. So the short run pace has definitely helped them out in the spring event, but it's hurt them in the fall. In the event stage 3 goes caution free, I would lean towards Blaney getting the win. But if it does not, that's where I would lean towards those 3 Hendrick cars. Byron Larson, probably more specifically than Elliott, but Elliott winning at the Clash earlier this season showed that he can get it done. Just hasn't been able to do it in a points-paying race so far this season. Still green. No incidents in Group 1 through their 25 minutes, and so far in Group 2, which we have a little less than 10 minutes to go until we get into single car qualifying. Just past the top of the next hour. We'll get our diecast showing in while we get closer to the end of practice. And for this weekend's diecast showing, I figured I'd show off another Terry Labonte one. I had the Kellogg's car a couple weeks ago, and figured, Kyle Larson announced a throwback earlier this weekend that he was going to be running the Tony the Tiger car. So I figured, what better car than to show the 2003 Tony the Tiger car, Kellogg's Frosted Flakes, that was ran by Terry Labonte in that season. Got his final career win in the Southern 500 late in that 03 year. Had his final top 10 points paying finish that season as well. Overall, pretty good year for Terry. And definitely one of the classic schemes from my childhood. Well, I really wanted to get this car growing up. I got quite a few Terry Labonte diecasts. Really like a lot of his diecasts. Or paint schemes, I should say, specifically. My early introductions into watching NASCAR. I will say I like the original a lot better. The door being, or the door number, I should say, specifically being slid forward and really no contingency sponsors, that really does highlight this scheme, I feel like, more so than the scheme that Larson's running. And I also, you got the Tony the Tiger on the hood of the car, but we don't have that, unfortunately, with the throwback scheme. And you got the typical HendrickCars.com logo. And it looks like the standard HendrickCars.com logo, too. Unfortunately, I didn't go with like the Kellogg's red logo in cursive. I think that would have been a good touch to try to make it a little bit more like it, but what can you say? They tried. I think it could be a little bit better. Is it my favorite of the weekend that we've seen so far? Like I've seen on the internet, a lot of people saying, honestly, I don't think it's my favorite. I think there will be a better one if to be announced Cup Series. I think it could have been done even better. Jeffrey Giordano, thanks for tuning in. Pulling for Bowman. Bowman the Showman coming off his first top 5 a week ago. Less than half the cars for Group 2 are out on the racetrack right now. Not sure how many of them are going to get back out onto the track before the end of this session. There is still time left. About 6 minutes remaining in Group 2 practice. And we've got 26 likes out of our goal to get to 50. Shrink the screen down just a little bit. See if you can see a little bit more of the leaderboard. Emogene Blevins, thanks for tuning in. Pulling for Blaney and Junior Motorsports later today. Yeah, Xfinity Series might turn into the truck race like it was later last night. That'll be at 5 o'clock. About 2 hours from now, we'll have our Xfinity Series race coverage on the channel. I'm going to pull up the NASCAR app so I don't have to leave this page. Quickly go through what happened yesterday in practice and qualifying for the Xfinity Series to highlight that race a little bit later on. Austin Hill was fastest in Xfinity practice yesterday. Sam Mayer second, Taylor Gray third, Myatt Snyder fourth, and William Sawalich was fifth. And then the top qualifiers, Connor Zilisch will be on the pole. Second straight front row start for him. Carson Kvapil will be on the front row as well alongside his teammate Zilisch. Then the two RCR Chevys in row 2 of Austin Hill, Jesse Love. Row 3 would be Harrison Burton, Justin Allgaier. Brandon Jones, Corey Day. Row 4, Day making his Xfinity Series debut. And then Daniel Dye and Sammy Smith in row 5 would be the top 10. Mayer Creed for Haas qualifying in the middle of the pack. Eric Almirola starting mid-pack as well. Had a win at Martinsville last season in the Xfinity Series, so he could be one of the favorites today. Already has a short track win at Phoenix in the Xfinity Series side of things as well. So again, 5 p.m. Eastern, a little bit later on today, will be the start of our Xfinity Series race coverage. Nearing the end of practice. Not as many laps for the Hendrick cars, although they are getting back on the track with a few minutes left. This could be to practice pit stop, maybe run a couple of quick hot laps, mock qualifying run, although they're not on fresh tires. So I doubt that that would be the case. Probably just made some fine-tune adjustments. See how it handles for a handful of laps. I mean, honestly, with 4 minutes, you can get about a dozen laps in. It's one of the tracks that it's not a terrible idea to go back out there again in the final 5 minutes like they are. But I believe all 4 of them are on the track. Yep, all 4 of them are. I don't think any of them are going to reach the amount of laps that Carson Hocevar ran, which was 68. He ran the most of any driver in Group 1. And we haven't seen anybody run more than 50 yet in Group 2. Oh, yeah, I was about to say Bell, but he was Group 1. Bubba was close, 49. I saw one at 50. That was Chris Buescher. Now Buescher's at 52. I want to see on the long run speed where Austin Cindric is real quick. Because the fastest 30-lap average was his teammate Ryan Blaney, but I just saw that Cindric is 36th overall in practice, and he didn't even make a run longer than 10 laps. No, sorry, of 30. He didn't make a 35-lap run, so we'll check the 25-lap average. See where that ranks. Mid-pack. Mid to back of the pack for Austin Cindric. One thing that's really shocking there, Christopher Bell had a ton of tire fall off. He was the fastest in Group 1 overall and still ranked second quickest. But then outside of having the quickest lap time from that group, he had almost 6/10 of fall off in 25 laps. And let's see how many drivers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let me recount. So 30, do my math here, 29. 29 drivers ran a consecutive lap run of 25 or more laps. And of those 29, Christopher Bell was 28th in the 25 lap average category after having the second fastest time overall. So that is definitely concerning for Bell. You don't want to be that far off on the long run while having good short run speed because it's not really going to do anything for you. You're not going to be able to maintain track position as well as other cars like the Hendrick cars who kind of plateau after a little bit on the long run where they're just outside the top 10. You're falling off that quick, that fast. You know, he qualifies well. He might lead laps early, but that's going to be as close to the lead as he's going to be. So very strange to see that out of Bell as well, because he's usually one of the drivers that has long run speed. And I'm sure that team is going to make quite a few adjustments overnight to get him better as well. Group 2 practice. We'll go through our full leaderboard here quickly again. Bubba Wallace, fastest overall. It is currently on track at Group 2. Christopher Bell, fastest from Group 1 overall, is second. Denny Hamlin, third, with Toyota sweeping the top 3 spots. Carson Hocevar, fourth, We've seen him top 5 in practice a lot this year as well. Cole Custer in 5th. Kyle Larson 6th. William Byron 7th. Ryan Preece 8th. Shane Van Gisbergen 9th. Probably the biggest surprise there. And then Busch 12th, Noah Gragson 13th, Cody Ware 14th, Brad Keselowski 15th, Eric Jones 16th, Ty Dillon 17th, Ty Gillen 18th, Chase Briscoe 19th, and Joey Logano 20th. John Hunter Nemechek 21st, Alex Bowman 22nd, Tyler Reddick 23rd, Daniel Suarez 24th, Ryan Blaney 25th, Austin Dillon 26th, Ross Chastain 27th, Chris Buescher 28th, Michael McDowell 29th, and Riley Herbst 30th, Josh Berry 31st, Zane Smith 32nd, AJ Allmendinger 33rd, Justin Haley 34th, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. 35th, Austin Cindric 36th, Burt Myers 37th, and Casey Mears 38th. That rounds out the full leaderboard in practice. You're not going to see any more changes there. And that will be the finishing results. So Bubba Wallace will be the fastest in practice. And one last time, best 5-lap average, Bubba Wallace. Best 10-lap average, Bubba Wallace. Ty Gibbs with the fastest 15, 20, and 25-lap averages. And Ryan Blaney, the quickest 30-lap average in practice. Can't really look at the overall lap average because it varies. Some drivers like SVG with the fastest overall lap average, that's because he didn't make a run of 15-plus laps. So, of course, it's going to be way quicker because there wasn't as big of a sample size. So I don't really like looking at that stat. I know some people do, but you got a guy that runs a 10-lap average and then quits after that. Somebody runs 30-plus laps. Their overall lap average is going to be nowhere near the guy at the 30. Even with minimal tire wear with this next-gen car and getting better at that, there's still going to be a difference, even if it's minimal. But that'll show up on our stat sheet. All right, we'll take another quick break as practice finishes up here. Your practice side almost done. Qualifying will begin shortly for the NASCAR Cup Series. Got 17 votes in our poll for who you think is most likely to win tomorrow's Cup race at Martinsville. Your 4 voting options are between Kyle Larson, William Byron, Ryan Blaney, and Denny Hamlin. Larson leading the poll at 35%, 29% for Ryan Blaney. Are the I'd probably say Elliott. I like him more than Hamlin to potentially win tomorrow coming into the weekend. Again, that's mostly pre-practice qualifying. Took a little bit of practice in there. If one of those guys would have been way off, I probably would have taken him out, subbed him in for somebody else. But I didn't want to overload it with Hendrick drivers either, so figure I'd throw Hamlin in there, who I think is going to be the best quicker overall. Wallace was, but especially for Bell, there was not long run speed there. Wallace was a little bit better on the long run, but Christopher Bell was noticeably off. So again, practice has concluded. Qualifying live leaderboard now up and running. So this is the order in which they will qualify, and as the lap times show up and each of these drivers completes one of 2 laps, we will see that lap time. And obviously the quickest of the 2 laps would be their posted lap. Because this is a short track, that's why they get up to 2 tries on that run. You don't have to run both laps, but I would imagine most drivers will, especially here at Martinsville Speedway. Again, there isn't as much fall off compared to Bristol and Richmond from one lap to the next. So we could actually see the second lap be quicker than the first. So our first qualifier will be Burt Myers, then Casey Mears, always starting off with the non-chartered entries for qualifying every week, as this is based off the metric system. And the metric for which NASCAR puts its qualifying order on every week is the fastest lap from the prior race, combined with the current owners slash driver standings, and then last week's finish. So that's why typically one week to the next, if somebody had a bad finish, you're going to see them more towards the beginning of the leaderboard, as well as being down further in points. So those are the 4 metrics that kind of go into our system, which is analytically produced. Finish things out, Kyle Larson will be the last driver to make a lap later today, later in the next hour. First 10 drivers in this block, again, Burt Myers, Casey Mears, Cody Ware, the first 3. After Ware will be Carson Hocevar, Riley Hurst, Shane Van Gisbergen. Then Cole Custer, Todd Gillen, and Ryan Blaney. Ty Gibbs will be number 10. And just over 70 people in the chat, 86 now. So we get into qualifying. There's an influx here that I noticed that probably weren't keeping up with practice as much. But you seem to be geared up for qualifying. Greatly appreciate everybody tuning in. And qualifying will begin shortly. Then the next couple minutes, we'll see Burt Myers out on the racetrack and start us off. Mentioned in practice already, but obviously this is going to be the Cup Series points-paying debut for Burt Myers. He did try to attempt to run the Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium earlier in the season. Failed to qualify for the main event, but was able to run the majority of the laps there. Obviously had a full 50-minute practice session the day before heat race, so he has quite a bit of recent experience in the next-gen car. And I'm curious to see what he can do in a full race. I know he's running with a team that doesn't run every week, so the speed's definitely not going to be there. But I am curious to see if he maybe gets into the top 30 on speed. Maybe not going to see that in qualifying, but over the course of a 400-lap race, if he can keep the car clean, mark my words, Burt Myers could impress and get a top 30 finish. I know most of you probably don't think that that's impressive, but for what he's working with, and I think he would probably take that as well. Heck, that or a lead lap finish. I mean, a lead lap finish is probably going to be even tougher. Either one, though, honestly, if he finishes either on the lead lap or in the top 30, it's going to feel like a win for that money team tomorrow. Dylan Thompson, welcome to the stream. Prime took their stream down. Oh, I had no clue. I've had issues with my Amazon Prime app for the last 2 weeks now. I wonder if NASCAR's going to delay the start of qualifying. Yeah, I have no clue. I've had issues with it. I don't know what's going on. I was asking the chat at the beginning of the stream, but I didn't get further confirmation on that. I would imagine they're not going to wait very long because the Xfinity race is starting at 5. So at some point, they're going to get this up and running again. You have to let me know in the chat if quite a few other people are also experiencing the same issues technically. Can't resubscribe to Prime. Okay, so that's exactly what mine's saying. Thank you, Dylan. I'm glad somebody else is having that issue. Yeah, I was unable to get into it last week as well. Granted, I didn't try to contact customer support because it was like a last minute deal. I was just expecting it to work before the start of the stream. I tried it again for quite a bit of time today, and I couldn't get it to work either. And I haven't gotten an email back from support yet, unless I have during the stream. Let me check. I'm glad somebody else is experiencing the same issues that I have. I tell you what, I better not do this when they have the races on Amazon Prime because I know weeks in a row. I'm glad I do my research prior, so I have quite a few talking points that we can kind of get through a couple hours. But if I don't have the race up when we get into the races later this season, that's going to be tough. At least we got a couple more months for them to try to figure that out. Prime on YouTube was streaming practice, but qualifying not. Oh, I gotcha. Well, that could have probably been the difference here. I was going to say, we just had like a spike right before the start of qualifying on the viewership side of things. But welcome in, anybody wondering what's going on. Still yet to see Burt Myers hit the racetrack for qualifying, but he will begin shortly. Probably about 3:15 at the latest, I would assume. Again, with the Xfinity Series race coming up, I don't think they're going to hold off too long, but we have a brief stoppage post-practice. Bubba Wallace fastest overall for the third consecutive week in practice. It translated to good speed for him, finishing third last week at Homestead, put a full race together. Martinsville last season, so it could very well be the case that team's got that much speed for the second consecutive week. Rugneck Creeker 012, thanks for tuning in. Someone drop a line. Nah, don't do that. I don't want to get in trouble for that. I don't want to call them. Feels like a lot of work. I don't know if there is a number to call. I know when I had an issue, granted this is with not Prime Video, but Amazon Prime a while back, around Christmas time, I ordered something and I didn't get it. And then when I did end up getting it, it was the wrong thing. And it was just like an automated system at first. And then you could kind of chat with a representative, but I don't think there's like a number you can call, which is dumb. But I can imagine because of so many millions of people have Amazon Prime is probably why there's no number to call. It would just be flooded. All right, 2 laps for Burt Myers. Fastest lap of the 2 was a 20.613. Again, he'll be making his Cup Series debut this weekend. Curious to see how that holds compared to Casey Mears in the 66. They're very similar in lap time in practice. Mears is now on the racetrack, again making his first Martinsville start since the 2016 fall race. His best career finish at Martinsville, he's had 3 career top 10s. His best is 6th, which happened twice. Once with Chip Ganassi Racing in the 42, and another time with Hendrick Motorsports in the number 5. And he actually finished top 10 in both of his Hendrick Motorsports starts at Martinsville, 6th and a 7th place finish in those races back in 2007. Casey Mears was kind of holding up his end on certain tracks, even in HMS equipment the one year. And then they got Kyle Busch and got kicked to the curb. But he didn't have a bad year. I mean, he won a race. He didn't qualify for the chase. That was probably a bad look. So there wasn't consistency, but he had good runs from time to time. I wouldn't say he was a scrub. Couldn't find a number. Yeah, I would imagine that's why they didn't have a number. So Mears was quicker than Myers. Not by much, 20.583 through his 2 completed laps. Average speed of 91.98 miles per hour. That average speed is for the quickest lap, not between the 2 laps combined. Cody Ware for Rick Ware Racing will now be on the racetrack. Best finish is 28 two different times in his previous 5 career starts at Martinsville. Be making his 6th start, obviously, at the track here this weekend. And it'll be his 3rd start with the next-gen car as well. Lap 1, 20.268, top of the speed charts for Ware. Couple tenths quicker than that of the Mears and Myers Open entries. Ware is currently working his 2nd lap. We'll see if it's quicker than the first. It is. 20.956. He picked up about 2/10 of a second for 1 lap to the next. Pretty good job there for Cody Ware. That was much quicker than he had in practice. That's a pretty solid lap. Consider the equipment. All right, defending Rookie of the Year, Carson Hocevar, our 4th driver to qualify on the racetrack. This will be his 4th career start. Part-time ride in the 42 at Legacy Motor Club in the second half of the 2023 season. And obviously both starts last year would have been the previous 3. His best finish of those 3 was 17th, which came in the spring race last season. Couple of tough finishes in recent weeks for Hocevar. Decent qualifying lap there, 19.991. That was more than decent. That was actually pretty good. That's the fastest lap we've seen so far today. Not surprising, though, considering it's now qualifying rather than practice, but still a great lap. Lap 2, just a little bit quicker. Picked up about 1800ths of a second from lap 1 to lap 2. Lap 2 is a 19.981. Average speed of 94.770 miles per hour. Hocevar's qualified well this season. Outside of the Atlanta race, hasn't necessarily had the greatest finishes, especially through the first half of the race on top of qualifying well. Can he put the full race together for this weekend? Riley Herbst's going to be making his Cup Series debut at Martinsville Speedway this weekend. Is now on the racetrack as our 5th qualifier for tomorrow's race. And he'll be the first of the Toyotas out on the track as well. 20.207 after lap 1 for Herbst. Jumps up to 2nd. A little over 2/10 off of Hocevar's lap. Herbst was just outside the top 30 overall in practice, which wrapped up moments ago. Lap 2 for Riley, about a 10th quicker. 20.118 on lap 2. So everybody has had a quicker second lap than a first. And I noticed that most of the lap times in practice that they were running their quickest lap was around lap 4, 5, 6. So we might actually see quite a bit of difference and a lot of pickup on lap 2 versus lap 1 throughout the entirety of this practice session, unless you make a major mistake on lap 2. Pushing a little too hard, lap 1 shouldn't be the quickest time. Shane Van Gisbergen, who was top 10 in practice, impressive there. He was also impressive last fall, where he finished 12th in his only Cup Series race at Martinsville. That was in the 16 car with Colleague Racing. Obviously in the 88 full-time this year for Trackhouse, is outside the top 30 in points. Searching, though, for his 2nd top 10 of the season this weekend. This could be a pretty decent run for him this week. Not a great first lap, 20.481. Picked up on lap 2 to a 20.090. And that will be a little bit better. 2nd for Van Gisbergen on lap 2. 2 Chevys top of the board through our first 6 drivers to make their 2 qualifying laps. 2nd Ford will be out on the track now, and that's Cole Custer. First chartered entry of the Ford group outside of, well, 3rd, I guess. Ford entry, Cody Ware and Burt Myers. Or, sorry, Cody Ware and Casey Mears. Had the wrong open entry. Have made laps. Cole Custer going to be making his 7th start at Martinsville in the Cup Series. His best finish was 13th in his rookie year of 2020 in the fall. Pretty good lap for Custer. Wow, lap 1 to the top of the speed charts. He doesn't need a 2nd lap, but he's going to take it anyway. 19.890 for Cole is well off of that. Definitely pushed too hard. He was about a second and a half slower on lap 2. First one pretty solid, though. That's the first driver to run their quickest lap on lap 1. Cole Custer was top 5 in practice as well. So he's showing some good short run speed at least so far this weekend. Maybe he can get that first career top 10 at the racetrack. Todd Gillen finished 10th here in the spring race of 2023. Fall race, excuse me. Fall race of 2023. Gillen had a top 10, finished 10th. That's his best career finish here, but he has actually finished 13th or better in 3 of the last 5 tries at Martinsville Speedway in the Cup Series. Todd Gillen could be a sneaky good pick for your fantasy team this weekend for a garage driver that you might not use throughout the rest of the year. Will he be one of my sleeper picks? Tune in tomorrow for our pre-race. That's a nice little plug for our 2:30 start time for tomorrow's stream. He doesn't typically qualify well, but he does qualify second in lap 1, just like Custer was. Only 14 hundredths of a second off of Custer's lap. I missed the lap 1 time. His second lap was a 20.020. I don't like how it shows their last lap on this qualifying sheet and not their fastest. Let me pull up the NASCAR app and see if that's a little different. Hopefully they give us the fastest lap there. Fastest lap for Gillen was a 19.904. So on the app it shows their fastest lap, but on the website it does not. All right, Ryan Blaney on the racetrack now. His first lap was a 20.019, which ranks him 4th quickest. Blaney's won the last 2 fall races at Martinsville. He's a 2-time winner here. 6 straight top 10 finishes at Martinsville Speedway coming into this race this weekend. That's the second best of any active driver. And he's had 10 top 10 finishes in his last 12 starts. So definitely one of his better tracks. Second lap, not as good as his first. 20.030 on lap 2 for Ryan Blaney, so still 4th. Had the fastest 30-lap average in practice. So should be quick in the race, but he's going to be starting pretty deep in the field. Once we get more cars to qualify here, we're only in the first 9. He's right in the middle, so that's a bit concerning for any Blaney fans out there like myself. Ty Gibbs has not had a great track record here at Martinsville. 5 career starts. His best finish is 18th 2 different times as he makes his 6th start at Martinsville tomorrow afternoon. Though he did show great speed in qualifying, 19.817, our fastest lap yet. So Ty Gibbs goes straight to the top of the speed charts on lap 1. He's currently working his 2nd lap. And lap 2, not quite as good as lap 1. He dropped off a couple hundredths of a second. Saw some Toyotas towards the top of the speed charts in practice overall, and then fell off on the long run. So Gibbs great short run pace. And now our 10th driver out on the track will be Ty Dillon. From one tie to the next tie. Ty Dillon's best finish 13th in his previous 12 starts at Martinsville Speedway in the Cup Series. That 13th was in 2019 spring. And again, 13th start for Dillon this weekend at Martinsville Speedway in the NASCAR Cup Series. And he will be the 11th driver to qualify. So our next 10, we'll have Ty Dillon, followed by Brad Keselowski, Ross Chastain, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Daniel Suarez, John Hunter Nemechek, Christopher Bell, Noah Gragson, Kyle Busch, and Michael McDowell. Those will be the next 10 drivers to qualify. 10 in, still got 28 to go in this session. Before Ty Dillon gets back out on the racetrack and runs his 2 qualifying laps, we'll take a quick break. Again, you're listening live on KRC. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Cookout 400 qualifying continues here shortly. Ruben Topple, welcome to the stream. Pull the chat back up, see if there's any other newcomers recently. Up to 38 likes. Our goal again is 50. We got well more than that many people watching. Be sure to smash the like button. If given the time, I'd say we could get to 100, but these streams usually aren't long enough. I try to cap it off at 50 for the Cup practice and qualifying streams, but I greatly appreciate everybody tuning in here. Visual purposes, Amazon Prime Video taking care of practice and qualifying for today, as well as the remainder of the first half of the season for Fox's coverage, and as well as obviously when Amazon Prime takes coverage as well for their races, starting with the Coca-Cola 600 on Memorial Day weekend. It is worth the shout out as well. We have had quite a few new viewers here in the last month or so on the channel, but just over 50% are not subscribed. So definitely hit the subscribe button. I appreciate you guys watching every weekend. Help grow this channel a little bit more. Just one click away. But I do have to throw that out there once or twice. Every one of these live commentary streams. But thanks for tuning in. Ty Dillon wrapping up his 2 qualifying laps. Fastest lap looked like his second, 19.976. That would be 4th quickest overall. A little over a 10.5 from Ty Gibbs' lap time. 4th of 11 that have qualified so far for Ty Dillon. Brad Keselowski, 2-time Martinsville winner, will be up next to qualify. Only one top 10 in the next-gen era for Keselowski, which was 9th last fall. And he led 170 laps in that race. So although the previous 5 next-gen races not good for Brad K, last season in the fall he picked up on a strong note and had one of his best performances at the track in years. Keselowski on his second, down in the 22s. Lap 1, though, pretty decent. Keselowski's not qualified well all season. I think he'll take 4th of 12. I don't think he's going to hold up for a top 10, but he might start more closer to front middle of the pack than back middle or very back. Ross Chastain's best career finish at the Martinsville Speedway would be 4th. In the spring race of 2022, he's finished in the top 10 3 of the 6 races in the next-gen era. He's finished in the top 10 at Martinsville Speedway, but only one time in the last 4. But he has finished top 15 in all 6 of those next-gen starts. So he's getting to the end of the race, finishing all right in all of them, good in half. What is good is his qualifying speed. Number 2, 865. Sorry, 19.865 for Ross Chastain was his quickest lap. Very quick, though. Just over 300ths of a second off the fastest lap we've seen so far, which is still from Ty Gibbs, who is on the hot seat. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for JTG Doherty Racing is on track. His best career finish was 8th with JTG Doherty back in 2023 spring event. This is only top 10 with the next-gen car at the racetrack. Had a couple more top 10s in his Roush Fenway racing years, but no top 5s to this point for Ricky. 20.109 on lap 1 for Stenhouse. which is 10th of 14. Definitely looking for a much bigger pickup here on lap 2. See if he can at least get a couple more spots. And lap 2 was actually not as quick as he dropped off about a 10th of a second. So still sitting in 10th for Stenhouse. And due up is Daniel Suarez in the 99 for Trackhouse Racing. Has not finished in the top 10 with Trackhouse in the 6 races with the next-gen car here. His best finish is actually back in. And his best finish that year at Martinsville was 9th in the fall event. Definitely not a great track for Suarez, but he's got some lineage. SVG was top 10 in practice, finished 12th here last season. Chastain has had some good runs at times with the next-gen car here. We'll see if Suarez can better himself at the track. Decent qualifying run. Lap 1, 19.919, 5th quickest. Top third of the speed chart so far. And he ran the same identical lap time. Oh, okay. It didn't update right away. He dropped off about 0.05 of a second from lap 1 to lap 2. I think Suarez will take that. That's not bad. He should be better in his starting spot than where he was overall in practice. He was outside the top 20 in practice. He might be in the top 20. I don't think he's going to move backwards 15 spots with who we have left. John Hunter Nemechek for Legacy Motor Club will be up. He's still hovering around the top 16 in points. He's actually tied for the last playoff spot coming into the day. Hasn't finished inside the top 10 since the second race of the year at Atlanta. His only 2 top 10s on the season were those first 2 events. His best finish at Martinsville, meanwhile, 25th in his rookie year of 2020 with Front Row Motorsports. This will be his 5th career start at Martinsville in the Cup side. Again, for John Hunter Nemechek this weekend. Pretty quick. Toyota's, again, good short run speed in practice, top 3, and top 2 in qualifying. And we've only seen 3 of them qualify so far. Riley Herbst is further back in the pack, but Nemechek second. Just a couple thousandths of a second quicker than Chastain to jump up onto the current front row. Second lap was about a 10th of a second fall off for Nemechek. 27 hundredths is the gap between first and second. And another Toyota who was one of the fastest in practice, Christopher Bell. He was fastest of the Group 1 cars. He's our 17th qualifier. He is a former Martinsville winner, 2022's second race of the season there, that fall race. And that's actually his only top 5 of his career at Martinsville Speedway. He was lacking very much on the long run side of things in practice. So even if he qualifies well, I don't feel too confident in him competing for the win. He does qualify well. Wow, 19.718. That time's going to be tough to beat. That was almost a 10th quicker than Ty Gibbs. Almost a 10th. 96.034 mile per hour average. .754 on lap 2, which was also quick, but not as quick as his first. That was a great lap. 3 top 10s and 10 career starts for Bell at Martinsville, but again, only that 1 top 5, which was a win. Him lacking the long run fantasy team tomorrow. Throwing that out there. We'll have more on that in our pre-race, obviously, for tomorrow's event. Noah Gragson is now on track for Front Row Motorsports. Finished 11th in the fall race here last season. That was his best finish of his career at Martinsville Speedway. Gregson just getting his first lap in. And he was 6th on lap 1 with a 19.896. He's had some good qualifying efforts this season. Decent speed. Honestly, consider the equipment, I would say great speed. Just hasn't been able to get great finishes other than that top 10 he had at COTA. Slower by over a 10th on lap 2, but still 6th for Noah Gragson, as we are going to be halfway through our qualifying order once Kyle Busch wraps up his qualifying laps. Busch is also another one of the 2-time winners at Martinsville in our current Cup field. He's had 5 straight finishes, though, outside the top 10. That'd be all 4 starts with RCR, and his last start, 2022, with Joe Gibbs Racing. I remember that one. That was bad that year. You could tell he was leaving. He was running like 35th, 3 laps down at one point on speed. That was bad that day. He hasn't gotten a whole lot better, although it's been a little bit better at RCR. He's been outran on the short tracks by Austin Dillon, I've noticed, since he's gotten to RCR. Richmond, Martinsville, Dillon's been a bit quicker than him. Last week at Homestead, Austin Dillon was top 10 at one point in the final stage. I think he finished 13th, but Busch was nowhere near the top 10 for most of the day, so he's definitely looking for a little bit of redemption. He's another one of those drivers tied on the playoff cut line as of right now through the first 6 races of the season. Lap 2 was slower than lap 1, but lap 1 was pretty darn quick for Kyle Busch. Second fastest in qualifying. Still over 900s off of Bell. That lap time for Christopher Bell is going to be very tough to beat. I would not be shocked if he's the pole sitter for this one. He's still got almost a 10th back to second. We still have half the field to go. We got some strong cars in the back half of it. Logano's been a great qualifier this season. All 4 Hendrick cars still have to go. 4 more Toyotas, which were quick in practice and should have similar speed to Bell as well. So it's going to be tough to beat, but it is beatable. So again, halfway through qualifying, and now we have Michael McDowell. His best finish at Martinsville, 14th in the 2020 June race. Remember, because of COVID, that they didn't run the first Martinsville event until the summer that year. I also remember that race being at like 90 degrees going into the nighttime. And there was way more tire fall off than you'd usually see at Martinsville because of the heat. That was actually a fun race looking back on it. They should consider bringing a Martinsville night race to the summer portion of the season rather than early in the year, and I think we'd see a much better race. Because that race was one of the more fun races that season from what I remembered. Bristol was really fun too. That was later in the year. They had a lot of tire fall off in that one because it wasn't until like early June. I think instead of having them in the spring, they should have, especially if they're going to keep Bristol and Martinsville in the playoffs going forward, you can keep a playoff date, just move the other 2 dates back into the summer a little bit. And that might solve a little bit of the short track problem that we have right now with the next gen car. It's a small fix, but it's worth a shot. We're trying everything else that seems to be not working in as quick of a direction as what we'd like it. Try moving the date around a little bit. Putting it out there. I don't think anybody of importance is watching the stream from NASCAR, but if they are, take notes. All right, so a little bit of a break time here as Michael McDowell is waiting on his laps, and while we wait on him, we'll take another break. Again, you're listening live to NASCAR Cup Series qualifying for the Cookout 400 at Martinsville. Seth Thomas as well, welcome to the stream. Might have a little bit of lagging going on here these last couple minutes. I think it's because my laptop battery's running a little low. That'll fix her up. McDowell, our 20th qualifier for the day. And after his 2 qualifying laps, he will jump up to 4th. And it looks like his second lap was his quickest with a 19.878. Pretty good lap for McDowell. 95.477 mile per hour average. Austin Dillon will be out on the racetrack. 2 top 10 finishes with the next gen car at Martinsville Speedway. His best was actually a 3rd place finish in the spring race of 2022. And his second would have been last fall, where he finished 7th. So I mentioned he's been outrunning Kyle Busch at RCR with this next-gen car. Again, 2 top 10s with the next-gen 7th last year. Busch was not even in the top 20 for most of that race. And obviously we saw him run well at Richmond last year, won the race. Despite not qualifying for the playoffs, he still won. And was top 3 for most of that event. Pretty good qualifying effort, I'd say, all things considered for Dillon. 19.858 on lap 1, which would put him 7th. Dropped off a little over a 10th on lap 2. First few qualifiers with a more green racetrack, it seemed like their quicker lap was lap 2. As we've gotten into faster cars, it's really fluctuated between what has been their fastest lap and not so much. Of the drivers at the very top of the leaderboard, it seems like their first lap was their quickest. But again, 7th for Austin Dillon out of 21. Eric Jones for Legacy Motor Club, next Toyota. Best finish here was 8th in 2021, his first year in that 43 car. With the next-gen car, he has not finished in the top 10. His finishes here last season were 12th. 15th on lap 1 for Jones. Lap 2 slower, so 15th it is for Eric. 15th out of 22. I know Blaney had good long-run speed in practice, but I'm surprised he's that far off in qualifying. The way it's looking right now, he's going to be outside the top 30. Should make for a fun watch, though. So he tries to go for back-to-back Martinsville wins. More on that at the end of the stream. We'll go through the full leaderboard, but it's just something I noticed because Jones was right around him in qualifying. Josh Berry on track, 16th in the spring race last year, was his best of those 2 Martinsville starts in his career, which were both last season in his rookie campaign. He was 21st in the fall event as well. A win a couple of weeks ago at Vegas, so he's already locked into the playoffs. Didn't show of Ryan Blaney in practice, but much better in qualifying, 11th for Berry. It looks like his second lap was his quickest of a 19.819. Actually, he jumped up even quicker on that second lap. His first lap was 11th. Second lap, once it registered on our screen, 4th. And Berry's qualified very well all season on the ovals. Super speedways, short track, intermediate. He's been qualifying towards the top 10 almost every week. Front row last week at Homestead, and here he is 4th. Past halfway through qualifying today. Austin Cindric was 36th overall in practice. Definitely seems to be relying on the long-run speed, maybe like his teammate Ryan Blaney, although Martinsville has not been a bad track for him. He's actually had 2 top 10s in the last 3 tries and finished 4th in the fall race last season, 9th in the fall race the year before. Spring race, he has yet to finish in the top 10 in his 3 spring starts at Martinsville. Qualified top 10 for the moment, though. 9th. I don't think that's going to hold for a top 10 starting spot, but decent. Again, still better than Blaney. Second lap was slower, dropped back into the 20s, but lap 1 in the 19.9s. Just over a 10th off the pole time for Cindric. Zane Smith, another rookie from last season, now on the racetrack. And both of his finishes here last year, not great. 31st and 21st for Smith. $19.866, pretty solid first lap for Zane. 8th? 9th. 9th on lap 1. We'll see if he picks up. That is 3 front row motorsport cars. He was at track. Oh, no, he wasn't at Trackhouse either last year. He's at Spire last year. I don't know why I said Trackhouse. Goofed up on that one. Still 9th, though, for Zane Smith. Lap 2 was slower. Another former Martinsville winner, one-time winner, Chase Elliott, on the track. He won on the Clash, which is probably the most similarly styled track to Martinsville earlier this season, in the preseason, if you will. That one win came in the 2020 fall event, which obviously launched him into the championship race the next week where he won the title back in 2020. Martinsville, one of his better tracks on the circuit. 5 top 5s and 8 top 10s. In the last 13 races at Martinsville Speedway, he has had 11 top 10 finishes. He finished third and second in both Martinsville starts last season. And in qualifying on lap 1, very close to the pole time, 19.776, second quickest. Lap 2, even quicker. Chase Elliott's on the pole as of right now, 19.735. Oh, no, never mind. He's slower. He's slower. Second. I apologize for that. I got overhyped for nothing. The last lap on here is really throwing me for a loop. I'm sure you guys can see it on screen as well. It shows their last lap on NASCAR.com and not their fastest lap. So when I saw the 19.735 to the 19.754, I was like, oh yeah, he beat him. But no, that was their second lap, which was both their slower laps, which were still relatively quick, but closer though than what it was before. Before it was almost a tenth of a second. Now it's just over a hundredth of a second. We still got a lot of Toyotas and the other 3 Hendrick Chevys to go. A little bit later on in qualifying. Meanwhile, talking about another goof, Justin Haley. Not Haley. Haley's not a goof. I was a goof. Justin Haley. Sorry to Justin. Didn't mean to put shame on his name. Qualifies 19th. Haley finished 30th and 29th last season in both of his Martinsville starts. One would have been with Colleague. The other one would have been with Spire Motorsports later in the season when he filled in for LaJoie in the 7 car. So not a great track for him. And he's going to be starting deep in the field again tomorrow as well. Now Joey Logano is on the racetrack. And Logano is a former Martinsville winner. His only win here in 2018, similar to Elliott, launched him into the championship for that season where he eventually won his first Cup title. 11 straight top 10s, most of any driver active for a top 10 streak at Martinsville Speedway. And he's had 2 runner-ups with the next-gen car, though he has not won a next-gen race at Martinsville. He's been close. Qualifies third on lap 1. Room for improvement, 19.762. And we'll see if lap 2 will be quicker for Joey. No. A little less than a tenth slower. 400ths off the pole time. Again, third for Logano in qualifying. Now up is Ryan Preece in the number 60 for RFK Racing. 9th place finish for Preece in the spring event last season with Stewart-Haas Racing. And in 2022, he actually won the pole with SHR, led 135 laps in that race. And he's been very consistent with that team. And what I would argue now, he's in better equipment. Maybe we can see some better runs out of him. 3 top 15 finishes in his last 4 starts with SHR, all obviously in the next-gen car at this track. Not a great qualifying lap, though, for Preece. Trying to find him. Where'd he go? I don't know why I don't see him anywhere. Scrolling quickly. There he is, 13th. Lucky number. Looks like his second lap was probably his quickest, considering it was a 19.884 and was faster than the second lap of those around him. So lap 2 quicker for Ryan Preece than his first. Again, 13th, right in the middle of the pack of who is all qualified. AJ Allmendinger, former runner-up at Martinsville, 2-time runner-up. That was back in the Gen 6 days at this racetrack. He has no top 20s in his 4 next-gen starts here, all with Colleague Racing. So maybe the good days of Allmendinger at Martinsville could be behind him. Looking for redemption this weekend. He's had solid runs on the last 2 races, back-to-back top 10s on the mile and a half at Vegas and Homestead. So it could happen with momentum riding high for him, although this is a much different styled racetrack. We shall see. So in the order that it shows on screen, we have 9 drivers that still have to qualify of the 38. As I mentioned already, AJ Allmendinger will be the next. After AJ will be William Byron, then Chris Buescher, Chase Briscoe, Tyler Reddick, Denny Hamlin, Bubba Wallace, Alex Bowman, and Kyle Larson will finish things off, and he will go for the pole on whoever would have it at that time. As of right now, Christopher Bell Still has the fastest lap. I mentioned when he put that lap, it was going to be tough to beat. Not sure what that lap is. Let me go to the NASCAR app real quick. They'll have it for me. Our website does not. 19.718 is the time to beat right now. 19.718 for Christopher Bell. That's a 96.034 mile per hour average. It was on his first of 2 qualifying laps. We'll take our final break of this live commentary stream while we await our final 9 qualifiers. You're listening live on KRC Cookout 400 qualifying. Linda Bollinger, David Earl Arnold Jr., welcome into the stream as well here recently. Thank you for allowing us to hit our like goal of 50 on the stream as well, everybody. We have almost 200 people in the chat, though, and only 52 likes, so be sure to hit the like button, even though we got to our goal. Again, it really helps the channel out a ton and helps push this content. We do live commentary streams every NASCAR race weekend for Truck Xfinity Cup races as well as Cup practice and qualifying. So whether you're unable to watch or prefer maybe my commentary over the TV side of things, you tune in every weekend for NASCAR live commentary content. Content through the week at times as well. And highlights from the stream uploaded late Sunday night, Monday morning, depending on when the race gets done the weekend before. Race highlight videos from the grandstands for the races I will attend in person later this season as well. AJ Allmendinger, 15th on our qualifying grid through his 2 laps. He has completed 95.189 mile per hour average for him. William Byron in the 24 car will be the second Hendrick Motorsports Chevy on the racetrack for qualifying. He's a 2-time Martinsville winner, both with the next-gen car, and that would have been in the 2022 and 2024 spring races. So he's won the 2 shorter races, has not yet won the 500-lap race, but this one is one of the 400-lappers. He has led a combined 351 laps at Martinsville in the next-gen era. That's the second most of any active driver. And he tends to qualify well most weekends. He's leading the point standings. I expect Byron to have a really solid run yet again this weekend and try to keep that points lead for at least another week. 19.782 for William Byron on his first lap. He's still working his second. That's 4th on lap 1. A little bit slower than his teammate Chase Elliott. He dropped off about a 1/10 of a second on lap 2, so still 4th place for Byron. He'll be starting towards the front of the field, but not at the very front. Front row, again, is still Bell and Elliott, with Bell's lap time of a 19.718, the time to beat. Chris Buescher for RFK Racing is now on the racetrack. Not been a great track for Buescher in his Cup career. He only has 1 top 10 in the next-gen car, which was an 8th place finish in the fall race of 2023. His teammate Keselowski had a very solid run here last season, but Buescher has not had as great of runs in that 17 car at this racetrack specifically. Kind of 2 weeks in a row he's going to a track that he hasn't performed well at, though he did have an upswing in a run at Homestead last weekend, despite the statistics saying otherwise, so maybe you can do that 2 weeks in a row. His qualifying effort this week is very good. 3rd on lap 1 with a 19.758. Falls off a little over a 1/10 of a second on lap 2. 3rd place it is for Chris Buescher as of right now. 4 Toyotas, excuse me, and then 2 Hendrick Chevys to finish things out in qualifying. And of the 4 consecutive Toyotas, Chase Briscoe will be next. One of his best, if not his very best racetrack on the NASCAR circuit. He has not yet won at this place, but he's proven to be a good short track racer with Stewart-Haas Racing, now in better equipment at JGR. We'll see what he can do. His best finish at Martinsville is 4th. That was in the fall race of 2023. Led a lot of laps in that event as well. 6 straight top 15 finishes and 5 top 10s in his last 6 starts at Martinsville Speedway. So again, a great track for Chase Briscoe, and that was all with SHR. Which, again, that means he could have even better speed here this weekend. 6th in qualifying with a 19.805 on lap 1 for Briscoe. A lot of our late qualifiers jumping up towards the top of the speed charts. Even the Fords of Busch and Logano, who struggle on short run speed in practice but have it for qualifying. Lap 2 time for Briscoe dropped into the 19.8s, so still 6th. So of our recent qualifiers, the first lap has been their fastest when they jump up into the top of the leaderboard, which has been the case when we've seen top times be posted throughout the qualifying session. Tyler Reddick, his best finish at Martinsville, 7th, and that was last season in the spring. He only has 2 top 10s in his 10 career starts, ranging with both 2311 and RCR. So not a great track for Tyler Reddick statistically speaking, but he should qualify well because Toyota's had great qualifying speed so far this weekend. Reddick a great qualifier as well on most weeks. So despite what we see in the race tomorrow, I expect him to be up towards the top. And no, he's still not going to qualify well either, which is not great considering his track record in the race here. Quicker on lap 2. Okay, that was a big pickup, and he needed that. From lap 1 to lap 2. His second lap was quicker, 19.780. And that does jump him up to 5th. Okay, so what I said before does stand. It scared me a little bit. I thought I jinxed him on lap 1. Lap 2, he redeemed himself. Good under the Toyota bunch. One of the best drivers statistically speaking at Martinsville. He's by far won the most races of any driver at Martinsville Speedway. 5-time winner at this racetrack. And in his last 5 starts here, despite not having to win with the next-gen car, has 4 stage wins, 461 laps led in the last 5 starts. He's got the most laps led of any driver in the next-gen era here, most stage wins of any driver, just hasn't gotten to victory lane yet. Good qualifying effort on lap 1, 19.758 for Hamlin, 3rd quickest. 400s off of Bell, that's the pickup he needs on lap 2. And Hamlin was also top 3 in practice. Again, the Toyotas were lacking on the long run speed collectively, but all had great collective short run speed. Bell's second lap was quicker than Hamlin's first. That just goes to show how quick Bell was on both laps in qualifying, but lap 1 was his quickest of the 2. Waiting for our second lap for Hamlin to post. Might have to look onto the NASCAR app here. It hasn't posted. Did he wreck? There's no caution, so that's probably not it. He ran the same identical lap time to the 1,000th of a second as Chris Buescher. Because on the NASCAR app, it has Buescher 3rd, Hamlin 4th, but on here it has Hamlin 3rd and Buescher 4th. So I don't know which one's correct and which one isn't. 2 more drivers to qualify, Alex Bowman and Kyle Larson. Alex Bowman, another one of the 10 former winners at Martinsville Speedway coming into the weekend. 3rd on lap 1 for Alex Bowman. With a 19.738, his win here came in the 2021 fall race. That was the only Martinsville race I've attended in person. Oddly enough, he dumped the guy that just qualified before him in that race for the win. Only 1 top 10 finish, though, in the next-gen era. 5 starts here. He missed 1 due to a concussion back in 2022. But 1 for 5 in top 10s with the next-gen car for Bowman. 3rd in points coming into the weekend. Lap 2 was slower than lap 1 for him. So 3rd quickest still. 200s off the pole time for Bowman, the showman. Kyle Larson, our last driver to qualify as he tries to go for the pole. Trying to go for back-to-back wins as well after winning at Homestead last weekend. He has one career win at Martinsville. It was in 2023, and it was the spring race that season. Hendrick Motorsports has won all 3 spring races with the next-gen car. 4 top 3s in the last 5 starts at Martinsville for Kyle Larson. Great track for him since moving to Hendrick. 68-plus laps led in his last 7 starts. He's done that 4 times. 4 of his last 7 starts at Martinsville, he's led at least 68 laps. And he is quick in qualifying, but not quickest. 4th for Kyle Larson. His first lap was his best, 95.854 mile per hour average, and I kind of called it middle of the run. Christopher Bell was one of the first half that went out and made a qualifying lap. He put down a blistering lap of a 19.718, and that is going to remain our pole lap as qualifying concludes for the Cookout 400 at Martinsville. Average lap speed of 96.034 miles per hour as well. Congratulations to Christopher Bell for getting the pole. Definitely needs to go to work on the long run speed. That was lacking in practice. He was very, very slow on the long run compared to almost every driver. 29 drivers made a 25-plus lap green flag run on one stint in practice, and he had the 28th best average of those 29. Good fire-off speed, just like he had in practice here for qualifying. It's a good start. Going to have to put a full race together if he's going to want to get his 2nd win at Martinsville and maybe his 4th win of the 2025 season, what will just be the 7th race of the year. We'll go through our full starting lineup before we exit the stream here to see where your favorite drivers are starting for tomorrow's Cookout 400. Christopher Bell and Chase Elliott will make up the front row. Again, Bell on the pole. Both former winners, one-time winners at that, at the track. 2 more former Martinsville winners in row 2, each one-time apiece, both in the fall race for Bowman, spring race for Larson, 23 for Larson, 21 for Bowman. Again, row 2 for those 2 HMS Chevys. Denny Hamlin, the 5-time winner, starting in position number 5 for row 3. And Chris Buescher in search for his first win at Martinsville Speedway this weekend, highest qualifying for Ford as a manufacturer today. Joey Logano, Bubba Wallace will be in row number 4. And then row number 5 will be Tyler Reddick and William Byron. Again, Hendrick Motorsports last 3 times have won the spring event. And William Byron, 2 times a winner, defending winner of this race, in fact, as well. In row number 6 will be Chase Briscoe and Kyle Busch. Row number 7, Ty Gibbs, Josh Berry. Good to see Gibbs qualifying top half of the field this weekend. We'll see if he can put a full race together tomorrow as well. Michael McDowell and John Hunter Nemechek will be in row 8. Row 9 for Ross Chastain, Austin Dillon. Zane Smith and Austin Cindric in row 10. Row 11, Ryan Preece, Cole Custer. AJ Allmendinger and Noah Gragson in row 12. Todd Gilliland, Daniel Suarez. Row 13, Brad Keselowski and Ty Dillon, row 14th. Carson Hocevar, Justin Haley, the Spire teammates in row 15, row 16 for Eric Jones and Ryan Blaney starting deep in the field tomorrow. I think he's going to be the fun one to watch in stage 1. He had the fastest 30-lap average in practice. We've seen the long-run speed in years past at Martinsville as he's won the last 2 fall races. We've seen it in the last 2 weeks as well. Can he stay out of trouble is going to be the question mark for Blaney. But again, I think he'll be the fun watch of stage 1 of the drivers starting further back in the field. Shane Van Gisbergen could be as well. He finished 12th in the fall race last season. He starts in the 33rd spot inside of row 17. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. to his outside. And row 18 will be Riley Herbst and Cody Ware. And row 19 rounding out our field for tomorrow's race are open entries of Casey Mears and Burt Myers. So again, that's our full 38-car field for tomorrow's course of this live commentary stream. Be sure to hit the like button if you haven't done so yet and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content. We will be back at it at 5 p.m. Eastern, 1 hour from now for the NASCAR Xfinity Series race. So again, 1 hour from now, we'll begin our NASCAR Xfinity Series race coverage, and we will have our full flag-to-flag coverage for tomorrow's Cup race at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, beginning with our pre-race, which will be right here on KRC. Other shout-outs at the end of the stream for those that tuned in that I didn't shout out. KJ Productions, Davey, Tim Fowler, Carol Berry, thank you for tuning in. Cindy Duncan, Irina Sayre, Janet Barker, Chuck, and much others that were in for the entirety of this practice and qualifying stream. Greatly appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button. We're closing in on 6,000 subs. Subscribe. Again, over 50% of you are not. Greatly appreciate you guys tuning in here every weekend as usual, and I hope to see you soon. Again, Xfinity at 5, a little less than an hour from now, and Cup race coverage tomorrow at 2:30 Eastern start time.